There has been a lot of speculation about Aaron Glenn, and on this episode, I will tell you why Aaron Glenn will most definitely be back in 2026, but also tell you why there will be a lot of pressure for him. Other news around the Jets: Garrett Wilson is done for the season. Mason Taylor looks like he will be back after this weekend, and the Jets have added yet another quarterback to their quarterback room. All this and much more coming up on the latest episode of Rich Sports Talk. Welcome into the latest episode of Rich Sports Talk, your home for all the latest and greatest on the New York Jets. Make sure to comment in our live stream super chat to jump to the front of the line, or if you just want to make a donation to the channel so we can keep creating more engaging and great New York Jets content. Don't forget to like and subscribe to help us with the YouTube algorithm. And if you want to take us on the go, you always can with our podcast. We are available wherever podcasts are available, and check us out on X and Instagram using the handle at Rich Sports Talk. So a lot going on in Jets land. The Jets have added a quarterback who I've been speculating they would look to add for months now. Garrett Wilson has officially been shut down for the season. But I wanted to talk about a big point. And this sometimes happens in this line of work. When we talk about the media covering teams especially, you have local coverage, which again follows the teams throughout. They follow the team every week. They follow the team exclusively well. And then you have the national picture. And again, the national picture, I get it. There's a lot to cover. There's a lot that can go on in the national picture. But I get the sense that, especially with some of the national media, I saw the rumors coming out again, started earlier with Mike Florio on PFT, said that he could see Aaron Glenn being a one-and-done head coach. And that, of course, has dominated the airways this week and caused a lot of debate among Jets fans. And I will say what I said a couple weeks ago. When I came on to talk about the trade deadline, I said the trade deadline will be a very good litmus test for the state of the Jets franchise. Because if there is any inclination that Darren Muji and Aaron Glenn feel that there's a chance they might be a one-and-done staff, they are not going to trade away pieces. They are not looking to add draft capital at the trade deadline. They are only going to do that if they feel convicted that they are coming back, and at 0-7, until you get those crooked numbers in the win column, that was up for speculation. Now, again, we know it happened. They traded Sauce Gardner. They traded Quinnen Williams. The last few weeks have been very ugly. Now we get to this week where they fire Steve Wilks. They bring in Harris to be the new DC, a guy who Aaron Glenn said he interviewed to be the DC initially, and Aaron Glenn says he will help step in. But there are so many reasons why Aaron Glenn being a one-and-done head coach, number one, don't make sense, and number two, why I don't think it will happen. When we talked about the subjects, think about where the Jets were. They were an 0-7 football team. I know a lot of people say, well, they're 3-11 now. There's 3 games, so they're probably going to win 3 or 4 games this season. And I understand it's incredibly frustrating. It's painful. But I said at the time, unless this team finishes 0-17 and 1-16, and they look completely abysmal, completely lost and rudderless, then you can maybe see a change. But the other thing, too, is we have to remember perception in the National Football League matters. Do you really think it's a good look for this organization to basically, in the span of less than 18 months, fire not 1 but 2 head coaches? We forget Robert Saleh was fired during the midseason last year. Not even midseason, week 5. And yes, Jeff Ulbrich was excused at the end of the season. But when you look at this whole picture, if you're a prospective head coach, it is not a good look if the owner's firing not only a well-known Jet, someone that's had a great career with the Jets, someone that had a great pedigree, and someone who was highly sought after as a head coach after 1 season, and not even getting a chance to draft a quarterback, not even getting a chance to really instill some culture. That's going to turn off a lot of people. The second thing is financial, too. I don't think that Woody Johnson will mind paying for a new head coach, but I don't think they're going to just rip up a contract after year 1. And the other thing, too, and this is the tricky thing with Aaron Glenn, The tricky thing is that the players that they have brought in have seemingly done well. It's a lot of the holdovers that really have regressed or have not played well. And they need another offseason to get more of those bodies in there. But the big question now with Aaron Glenn, and I do think it's an important one, is how good is this roster actually? Because we were for years saying, oh, put Aaron Rodgers on this team. This is a team that is a Super Bowl team. But now when we step back a little bit, is Sauce Gardner a number one corner in the league? Yeah, but he's probably closer to a top 5-6 corner than the number one corner in the league, which may have thought he could be. When we look around and we thought, oh, Breece Hall could be one of the top 3 running backs. It's top 10 running back, I would say, probably with production closer to 9 or 8, maybe 7. And I just look at this team right now, and there's still some good things. I still think the offense is performing. I still think the offense is showing some spark, even with an undrafted quarterback. Again, the defense has been brutal. And the one thing I said with the Wilks firing, and again, I understand that Wilks was brought in. It was more of a hire because they wanted to give someone in the room with some head coaching experience. But at the end of the day, I do think Aaron Glenn showed something very important, which was having a pulse of his locker room. And I think he felt that if he kept Steve Wilks through the end of the season, it was going to turn into a mutiny. But I know there is a strong portion of Jet fans out there that want Aaron Glenn to be a one-and-done head coach, and I get it. But I do think that Aaron Glenn, though, will go into 2026 not on the hot seat, but it cannot look like this again. Because Aaron Glenn did something which I really think hurt his credibility, which is at the beginning of his tenure, if you remember, how much were they saying, we're going to compete. We're going to compete. With this roster, we're going to compete. And then they get this roster, and I don't know if it was maybe a bit of arrogance. I don't know if it just wasn't a chance to get enough scouting. But apparently this roster isn't good enough. And again, that also falls on the head coach. Does Darren Muji and Aaron Glenn, are they getting a clear evaluation of this roster? Like, they came in and felt that with Justin Fields, they could be a competitive team. And that is nowhere near the case where they've been. And look, this has been an abysmal season. This has been a frustrating season. But I will say this. Aaron Glenn, I think, will get the runway to do what he wants. The issue is going to be next season. If this team once again starts off 1-5, 2-6, not even contending before Thanksgiving, then I think you have major questions. Because then all of a sudden, the Jets are likely going to have 3. They're going to have 3 first-round picks, likely going to have a top 5 pick with how that season's going. And then you have to ask a serious question with this incredible crop of quarterbacks. Is it better to get an offensive mind in here, someone that can help develop the quarterback? And look, I think that Aaron Glenn has shown some growth as a head coach over the last few weeks. But again, there's concerns. Robert Saleh, you can say what you want about him and Jeff Holberg, but I at least saw significant improvement. Now, again, the guys they brought in have seemingly shown some flashes. A.D. Mitchell on the offensive side. I mean, Brownlee before he got injured. Stevens, I think, has played better. But it is concerning when you look at the pieces that are here, like a Will McDonald and a Jermaine Johnson. And I think these next 3 games are going to be very telling. Can Aaron Glenn and this DC put them in positions to just be more successful? And I'm very curious to see how they will do it. But again, I just don't think it makes sense considering that this organization fired a head coach last year after, 5 or 6 weeks into a season. I just never made sense to me that Aaron Glenn was going to be a one-and-done head coach unless this team ended up with the first overall pick and someone through the grapevine said, hey, Mike McCarthy really likes Fernando Mendoza and wants to be your head coach, then you maybe would consider it. But at the end of the day, we're going to talk ad nauseum about the quarterback position throughout the next couple months. But overall, I think Aaron Glenn will definitely be back. Again, you can never say never with the Jets in the NFL. We've seen crazier things happen. But my opinion today is he's back for 2026. But again, if it is ugly again, if they're off to a horrible start, if we're doing what we've been doing the last 15 years, and which is doing mock quarterback drafts before Halloween, I don't think he survives into a 3rd season. Some interesting news around the Jets. Garrett Wilson out for the remainder of the season. Again, not a surprise. I think many of us, while I would like to see A.D. Mitchell and Garrett Wilson be paired up, I think it was a smart decision to help him get healthy. Mason Taylor was also told that even though he's not going to miss this week, he'll be back the final 2 games. And the Jets added an interesting quarterback after Adrian Martinez was brought in last week. They brought in Hendon Hooker, former Lions who was drafted in the 3rd round out of Tennessee, a kid who I liked as a developmental backup, split time with the Panthers. Panthers have signed old friend Mike White. And look, Hendon Hooker, I think it's interesting. He's been with this Lions staff before with guys that have been there with some of the crossover. I think that right now, if you had to ask me what's his role, I think it is to push Brady Cook a little bit. I get the sense that Tyrod Taylor also is not healthy, also has a groin with the knee. Again, he's just falling apart, Tyrod Taylor. And I think I will not be surprised if Hendon Hooker's the backup this weekend. I just think they want to have someone that they're familiar with. And look, this could be an opportunity if Cook somehow struggles or gets injured. Like right now for me, with Brady Cook and Hendon Hooker, like, do you look at them for 2026? Are they going to be competing in your camp? Like, are they going to be competing for your backup or your 3rd quarterback role? And look, both of those guys, I think, have an opportunity. I think Cook has shown some flashes. Again, you've also seen some of the anticipation, some of the throws have shown why he's an undrafted free agent. And look, Hendon Hooker, a bit older player, but he's been around the league a little bit. This is a staff and a system that he seemingly knows. I would not be surprised if both of these guys come into camp next year competing for maybe the backup or 3rd quarterback position. I mean, Hooker also 27 years old, bit older of a quarterback, like we've talked about. And, he's signing with the practice squad. And again, he was on the field today. I would not be shocked if he's elevated as well. And look, I've always liked Hooker out of college, a bigger kid, 6'3", 220. Again, when you look with Hooker, he spent his whole rookie season coming off that ACL again, got towards ACL last year at Tennessee. Made 3 appearances in 2024, 62 yards, 6 of 9 passing. And look, I think that he's a very accurate quarterback, especially in the middle of the field. He's going to be someone that's going to struggle to push it. But look, I think he could be a decent backup. We will see. Again, I'm a little surprised. The Jets, like I've been saying, I could see Hendon Hooker being a member of this team for a while. I even threw out the option they might try to trade for him, just like a late day pick swap, just to get someone with familiarity in this building. And look, if I just realistically think both of them can be competing for the backup quarterback position next year, the 3rd quarterback position coming into camp. But look, to me, I think this will be a very interesting week for the Jets. Like, let's be frank. I think this is honestly the last week we can hope for a win. But again, Saints have now gone up against the 2 best teams in their division and gotten wins against Carolina and Atlanta. So nothing's off the table. Again, comment, give your thoughts on Aaron Glenn, one-and-done coaching, your thoughts on Steve Wilks, your thoughts on the Jets in general, or any comments or questions that you have. Make sure to put them in the live stream. Again, super chat to jump to the front of the line, or if you just would like to make a nice donation to the channel. And look, I just get the feeling, too, that I just want this to be a competitive game. And I kind of get the feeling, too, that Aaron Glenn, I think, realizes New England and Buffalo are going to be tough games. They're both going to be playing for stuff. So I just look at this team right now, and I look at them saying, you know what, this is probably our last chance to win a game. And I know that will drive some people nuts because I know they're all concerned about draft position. I mean, look, to me, the Jets are going to finish at most with 4 wins. And, look, there's going to be a transition week. Chris Harris comes in as the DC. Alan Lazard gets released. Again, I'm still shocked he's not a Steeler yet. I like the Ruckert extension. I thought, again, he's a solid backup player. I think he's at least established himself as a role. He's really developed into a nice run-blocking tight end. And look, he was a bit of a project. I don't think the last snap developed him. And again, it's a little tough with Aaron Rodgers because we saw it. Aaron Rodgers had favorites, didn't really want to incorporate him in the offense. And I think Ruckert, they're looking at him, he's still mid-20s, a player that could be a nice number 2 tight end in the system. And again, it's nice you reward someone that's bought into this coaching staff, bought into this team, someone that, again, it's basically a 1-year extension, but I really like what they're doing in terms of adding him into the plan. And look, for Chris Harris, I think this is a good opportunity for him and Aaron Glenn. Again, you're not going to see the whole defense change, but will they be more aggressive? Are they going to have some more intriguing wrinkles in there? Are they going to play with a little bit different personnel? I mean, one thing I And again, at this point of the season, with all the injuries, I've kind of looked at, could they go with a bit of a heavier 3-4 front where you have Jermaine and Will stand up on the outside, put Harrison Phillips as a nose or an end, you have Jawan Briggs as a nose or an end, and then you can slide in there Saunders, who they've recently had again. Between the three of those guys, that's well over 300 pounds on the defensive line. Have Jermaine stand up on the edge, get Will McDonald outside the tackle. Like, could that be a little bit of a wrinkle that we could see? And again, super chat comments, join us here in the channel today. And again, I also think too, with this team, I think it was a good time to hire Wilks too, fire Wilks, because it gives this team a chance to get a little bit ahead of the game and get ahead of the competition. I think it, again, signals that they're open for business. And I do believe that, even though I do think that they're going to hire, I think if you ask me today, I think they're going to hire a unproven guy like a Jim Leonard or an Al Harris. I just don't think they're going to go with a veteran. I think Glenn wants a bit of control. But number two, I think Glenn wants guys that are going to be on his staff and not guys that maybe come in for a year. But look, this New Orleans game is definitely important in terms of tankathon. Jets right now hold the 5th pick. Indy's 18. And the Giants all have 2 wins. Cleveland 3-11. Cardinals 3-11. Jets 3-11. Of course, Jets with the strength of schedule just behind Cleveland. But again, I'm not stressing about that at this point, because again, so much can happen from now until then, especially with with everything that can go on. Look, if the Jets play a competitive game, they ain't got to win. The way I look is that no matter what, the Jets, they're not going to end up with the number 1 pick. They're not going to end up with the number 1 pick. If they like Fernando Mendoza as their number 1, they're going to have to trade up. But the thing that is concerning to me, and again, I think that we are living in a new age now with the draft, with the NIL. I mean, you basically have free agency. This is a free agency period. I mean, you've seen them. I mean, it's weird seeing colleges saying we've signed this guy. And you're like, I signed. Like, that seems a little bit interesting. But I mean, Lavia, Mensa from Duke is going back. Like, the big thing the Jets need is, I think, Dante Moore is the big one. And now you're looking at the class 2. If Mensa's going back to school, if you look at this class and Mavia's going back to school, and again, don't get mad at the players. Like, this is a system that is going to change the draft. And I will say this. I feel sometime in my life, we're going to see the NFL get involved with college football and say, hey, we got to get some of these kids to the pros, or, hey, we have to pay a little bit more for the rookies because, again, love this scam calls. But look, I mean, you look, Mensa's going back, Sorsby's going back, Laura Sellers going back, Mafia going back. I mean, we're living in a world where if Fernando Mendoza might just be a one-of quarterback class. And, if the Giants or Titans get great, but we also have to throw this out there too. Is there a chance? And I know Tennessee a little bit less likely because Ward, they even said, is going to be involved in the coaching search. But there's a scenario where the Giants get the number 1 pick and just go, the new coach likes Mendoza better. I mean, that is definitely something you cannot throw off the table, because, again, they would get a massive haul for that number 1 pick. But if they come back at the end of the day and say, we like Mendoza long-term better, then you have to consider it. And maybe there's a world where they say, you know what, we'll still get a decent package for Jackson Dart, but we feel that Jackson Dart could be a top 12 quarterback, but Mendoza could be a top 10 quarterback. And he fits the scheme we want to run a lot better. So I think that this is very important. Again, Justin Fields on his future with the Jets also came out. I mean, I don't know what I'm going to eat for dinner tonight, so I can't even worry about what's gone outside the season. Look, I think Fields is gone. The fact that he didn't want to basically play down the stretch, I think is very telling. And look, I think that was a bit damning too, because he's going to have to be a backup quarterback in this league. But this will be an opportunity. Tyler Shough, for him, again, I think he's played well. I mean, Shough was someone that the Jets actually looked at last year. It was a 30 visit for them. Again, I think a bit too rich in round 2 where he went. I think if he was in the 3rd round, they might have taken a flyer off a hint at that point. But, I mean, this is still an opportunity for Brady Cook. I like what I've been seeing from A.D. Mitchell the last couple of weeks. And look, this is a time of year I think you're going to see the Jets shut a lot of people down. I mean, you just look at the Jets IR right now. It is just, adding Garrett today. And, I mean, I was actually trying to think about this today. And you guys can tell me what you think. I'm not even sure who's available for the defense this week, especially in the secondary with A.Z. Thomas out. Trying to get the updated injury report on here for the Jets. Out for this week. Eric Watts out for this week as well with the concussion. You also have Justin. So again, I'm curious to see what the Jets secondary, like, again, the offense ironically is the healthy one. Like, I don't even know who's available on the Jets depth chart. Like, I'm trying to think of who's available at the corner position. I mean, Michael Walker probably plays this week with Kiko out. I mean, we saw Stiggers last week playing some corner. Does he get more reps at corner? Or Jordan Clark got some reps this week. I'm trying to think through with the Jets. Super Chat jumped to the front of the line. Again, let's get into some of your comments. Again, would love to hear from you guys as well, again, because you guys always have so many great questions as well. So I'm trying to get the comment section open. Aha, there we go. I don't know why my computer just is not acting up right now. Hold on. Let's get to your comments. There we go for Kev. If Glenn wants to hire a rookie DC because he wants control, I'd fire him on the spot. A winning head coach surrounds himself with the brain trust and isn't afraid to get constructive advice. I think what I meant to say was he doesn't want someone that's going to be like advantageous, which is, I think like a Greg Williams would be a good example. When Greg Williams came in with Adam Gase, he basically was just the head coach of the defense. And he did not care about Adam Gase. And it was basically, I'm going to do whatever I want. I'm not going to listen to basically anything Adam Gase says. I mean, basically think about that zero blitz against the Raiders, I think was the perfect example. So I just look at this as you need someone that's going to be on the same page and going to work with Aaron Glenn, not say, I'm going to do my own thing. I don't care what you say. I'm going to do my own thing. Like that to me is who they're going to be looking at. Again, I think the thing with Glenn is, especially with Banjo and a lot of the guys on his staff, and especially what you're seeing this week with the new DC, he likes a lot of former players. And I think what he'll look for is a former player that is trending as a coach. Because don't forget, you tend to add people like yourself. And you look at Aaron Glenn. Aaron Glenn grew from being a player to being a scout, then to being an assistant, now to being a DC, and then a head coach. I think he wants people that have gone that similar path, or at least worked their way up, or have really worked their way to get their opportunity. And that to me is like the type of person he will look to get. And Kev, IMO, we need veteran DC to avoid more growing pains. We've had enough of that with Glenn. The problem with the veteran, and I understand where you're coming from, and we talked about this when Wilkes got fired. The hard part for a veteran is going to be what is appealing about the Jets. Like, I would love Jim Schwartz. If Jim Schwartz wants to work for the Jets and doesn't care where he goes, that's fine. But if Jim Schwartz gets fired, there's going to be a lot of teams that are going to, bid for him. And I don't know if what the Jets have is what he's really looking forward to. And again, some of these veteran ones, will have options. I don't think Wink Martindale will come back. Again, huge personality. I don't think it would really go over well with Glenn. The one I could see, and again, I don't really love it, is Raheem Morris if he gets fired in Atlanta, because again, him and the ties to Glenn are there. They both were on the Jets staff at one point. They both were players. They both have basically grown up in the league together. I kind of get the sense he's going to look for someone that he feels can grow. And part of the problem when you get a veteran is this, Kev. Like, let's play a scenario. Like, I don't think Jim Schwartz, I think, has become to the point in his career where he's just going to be a DC. I don't think he's going to be a head coach again. But could like a Raheem Morris or one of these veteran DCs like Wink Martindale, are they going to look at it and basically go, if I have one great year at the Jets and I can parlay that to a head coaching job, I'm out? I think Aaron Glenn wants someone that he can grow on the staff and have for at least 2 or 3 years before they take another job. So I think that's also equates with the veterans as well. So, but again, Kev, I understand your point. And trust me, if they hire a veteran, like if it was announced at the end of the season, we brought Jim Schwartz, you will not get complaints from me. You will not. And, I also thought it was an interesting week too for former Jet quarterbacks as well. That basically, Miami is in a mess right now. Now he's to a bench. They have $99 million in dead money. But Zach Wilson gets passed by Quinn Ewers. If you haven't seen, Zach Wilson's been the backup. And basically, Zach was pouting about it and was sour about it. And look, I think the problem with Zach and Justin Fields, and I think Justin's is a more likable kid than Zach. You have to understand your first time didn't work out. Like, you need to kind of be humbled by that and learn. And look, Zach Wilson, I don't know everything that's going on with him in Miami. I don't know how it's go. Again, that locker room with McDaniel, the way the season has gone, I don't think it's been great. But to me, if you can't make it work with McDaniel and in a system that I think was very beneficial to Zach Wilson, and say what you want about Mike McDaniel, I think he's a crazy coach. I think he's way too eccentric. But there's one thing you can't dispute. He is a great play caller. And especially a run game coordinator, he is brilliant at designing run plays. Like, when he gets fired, I do think he's going to get a head coaching job in college, or he's going to be a high-profile OC for somewhere. I just look at it and go, if you can't make it work there or learn from that experience, I don't know what's going to happen. Like, I look at San Francisco. Sam Darnold, again, I think the thing that gets lost with Sam is I do think those years in San Francisco were incredibly beneficial to his game, and going to Minnesota with a great team and another great offensive coach really helped him. Because again, I hate the lazy narrative of, he was terrible with the Jets, and I've seen this especially with the way the Seahawks have played. Sam was god-awful with the Jets, and then all of a sudden he's found with Seattle. People are missing. There was a couple of years where Sam was basically a footnote. We forget, Carolina traded for both him and Baker Mayfield. We forget that chapter. Even with Baker Mayfield, we forget the Baker Mayfield chapter in L.A. We remember briefly because he played, 2 days after getting traded on Thursday night. But we forget that those guys bounced around a couple places before they ended up getting to the right place. And I look at Justin Fields, and if he wasn't willing to run the ball or play a wildcat, look, that's what teams are going to view you as until you show them different. They're going to view you as a backup quarterback or a wildcat quarterback until different. And with Zach Wilson, you look at the attitude. And look, there's a fine line by having you need to have attitude to be a great quarterback, but you also have to have some self-awareness. I mean, let's look at it too with Zach. Like, you went to a great place in Miami, great weather, good offensive coach. If that coach is telling you that he has more faith in Quinn Ewers, who, again, I will remind people, fell in the draft process and had an abysmal preseason and looked to the point where I didn't know if this was going to work. Like, I remember watching Tua the interception in the preseason, I'm like, oh man, like he just looks completely lost out there. If they're going to go with Quinn Ewers over you, I think that's very telling. And look, Ewers against the Browns this year, 53 yards, 62% completion. I mean, it's very telling. And I also think it's telling, too, that they went with Ewers. They drafted Ewers. They apparently liked the kid. But you had a great chance, Zach, because, again, you've had NFL experience. You've been around the league. You've been sitting behind a Hall of Fame quarterback with, Aaron Rodgers. You were able to hopefully, I don't know what you picked from his brain, but it doesn't appear to be enough. But again, I just wanted to go on that little bit of a soliloquy. Again, super chat to jump to the front of the line. Look, Kev, I talked about this a little bit last time. I think with the endorsement, I think Scott, he makes over $1 billion on TV. Look, I get that. Again, I don't think Glenn's going to get fired until at least the end of next season if that goes poorly. And look, I love the headlines Bart Scott would be. But the other thing, too, and I think this is a big problem. And again, good to hear from you, Tony. Again, would love to hear your comments. Again, super chat, jump to the front of the line. The problem with Bart Scott is this, and I love Bart. Bart was a great former player, and I do think he has the wherewithal to be a really good coach. But I don't think Aaron Glenn is going to pluck him from the booth and give him a DC job. I think he's going to look for someone that has some coaching experience. And again, I think Al Harris is a good example in Chicago. Al Harris has done a great job with the D back room. There's a reason why the Bears lead the league in turnovers, which is something the Jets could certainly use. But that is a former player that's worked up his staff and worked up to basically becoming the defensive passing coordinator with the Bears. I just think that what Glenn is looking for is he wants people that have somewhat followed a path or have the same mindset that, hey, I've worked very hard for this opportunity. I've grown as both a player in the NFL, but I've also grown as a coach through these experiences, through these trials, through these tribulations. And look, Bart Scott is great at diagnosing defenses. He's great at diagnosing. I think he could be a very good DC. But for Bart Scott, I think if he really wanted to get into coaching, he'd have to either be a DC at the college level. He'd have to be like the linebacker coach for a team, move up from linebacker coach, like maybe do that for a year or two, show grit, then get a DC job. I just don't think it is one of those things where you just give him the opportunity. Hey, Chris, good to hear from you. All is well. Again, I'm getting into the holiday spirit. Again, looking forward to the Christmas season. I know a lot of you are celebrating Hanukkah. So again, happy holidays to all the great Rich Sports Talk listeners. And again, I'd be doing a little bit better if the Jets were doing better. But again, it is par for the course at this point. But look, Aaron Glenn's going to get one more year at the very least. He's going to get at least 2 years. And if the Jets are not in a position where we're talking about the scenarios or in the hunt around Thanksgiving, if they're a 3-win team, then it would make sense to clear house, because at that point, you're going to be going into what we believe is going to be one of the deepest quarterback draft classes. You're going to have 3 first-round picks. You're going to hopefully have a better roster at that point. At least I think you have the bedrock with the offensive line. Again, the other thing, too, is Darren Muji and Aaron Glenn. And Aaron Glenn is running the show because even when he was introduced, Muji was introduced as, quote, Aaron Glenn's sidekick. They're going to have to get creative. And because there's a very real world as we keep going toward this draft. And this is one of the things where people have asked me, break down the quarterbacks, do your mock drafts, break down the quarterbacks. And I keep telling people, I'm going to wait because NIL's changed college football. And all of a sudden now these players are like, I could take the risk of going in the NFL, but, I'm going to get paid $5 million, $6, $7, $8 million, $9 to $10. I get to go back to college. I can still work on my craft, and that's going to make me a more valuable quarterback. Because don't forget now, too, what NALA has done is it's opened the door for agency. Yes, these kids have agents now. Before they had, quote, agents, but at least that was under the table. Now they have agents advising them. And again, they're looking at this and going, I think the biggest thing with NIL is doing is it's showing the horror stories of a quarterback. And I think the ultimate example is ironically the player I just mentioned, which was Quinn Ewers. Quinn Ewers reportedly could have gotten $8 million at Texas for this last season. He opted to go into the NFL draft. He went late day 3. His salary for the Dolphins is $800,000. So basically, take a full zero off of that contract. And if there's anyone that's not a lock quarterback to go in the top 15, I think they're going to look at last year's draft and look at Shedeur and look at basically everyone and go, look, Shedeur, like we all thought he was going to be a top 10 pick. He didn't go to the 5th round. Quinn Ewers thought he was going to go to the NFL and maybe be a day 2, day 3 pick. He ended up going day 3. And they're going to keep saying, keep going into college. Keep getting these reps. Keep improving as a quarterback. Lenore Sellers, instead of improving your progression in reads and your accuracy, go to a different school. And the other thing, too, is, like, again, I'm a little surprised Memphis is going back to Duke. I thought he might try to go up. But these players, too, if they have a great season, maybe then a Power 5 or, again, Power 4 team recruits them to play for them. And if they can show that they can adjust with that level of competition, I do think that is a very important thing to keep an eye on. I'm hoping defense will be alive with a new core, but it will make it simpler. Again, Wilkes' scheme, I think the problem was they tried marrying too much of the solid scheme. To me, I almost at this point would just go and attack. This secondary is not great anyways. They're going to make mistakes. Just try to cause some chaos. I say turn Will McDonald loose, have at least 2 or 3 special blitzes designed to get him in one-on-one matchups. And look, there's certain guys from the secondary. Can you get Malcolm Kai Moore coming downhill on a blitz? I mean, Quincy, again, one of his best things is going through the A-gap. Can we get him coming through on a blitz? And the problem is they just need to be more creative and design the blitz. Like, the biggest criticism is who's coming on the blitz. They're easy to pick up, and they don't adjust the blitzes. And again, you're not going to change everything in a week, but can we just see a little bit more preparation and putting guys in better positions? But, it is getting trickier now with these quarterbacks. And again, I'm curious how the NFL college football relationship is going to be with these quarterbacks. Because look, I'm just looking at this right now. You look at how many quarterbacks are going back to school. I mean, Memsa for Duke, I thought, if he had a great process, I really like the athleticism. I thought there was a chance maybe he becomes a first-round quarterback. I thought maybe it would be more of kind of that Jackson Dart range. But now he's off the board. Sellers is off the board. I mean, if Dante Moore goes back to school, all of a sudden this class, isn't great. And look, I thought Mensa could go to I thought Mensa might just go to a different school. I mean, he was at Tulane the previous year. He made the jump to Duke. Again, he led the ACC in passing. I thought maybe he might try to get SEC Big Ten team. But look, he's made the decision to go back to Duke. Again, Duke ACC champions. And I thought he was going to be one of the top prospects in this draft, but he's going back to school. And look, with college football now, there's so much money. These agents are going to tell these kids, you're more likely to get hurt in the NFL. You're more likely to have your career derail by going to these bad teams. Why don't you stay in college, make as much money as you can, improve your draft stock as much as you can? Now, again, there's risks. I think Drew Aller is a great example coming back to this class. But again, he's probably going to be a day 3 dart throw at this point. The intriguing one to me is Ty Simpson. I don't love Ty Simpson as a top 10 pick, but could you convince me, if he comes out, could you convince me with the second first round pick where maybe I'd trade up a couple of spots but not give up any major capital, but with the plan that he's going to sit and develop as opposed to being thrown out there, I could maybe be talked into that. But look, there's so much dust in the air around these quarterback situations. And I also think a lot of it, too, is going to come down to how these teams play in the playoffs. Again, if one of these kids has a bad experience, or they might be out. But another way I look at it, too, and again, this was interesting. It's from Fields saying he doesn't think he'll be ready to play. Look, it is funny though. I guess the 2000 that draft class will always be fascinating because look, Trevor Lawrence again playing a lot better, but I don't think he's been the player we thought he was going to be. But that draft class, I mean, Trey Lance, woof. Justin Fields, woof. I mean, the only one that looks semi-decent is maybe Mac Jones, but, that's also with the 49ers, so who knows how that would be. Another question for Tony Alexia. Again, questions in the live stream. Super chat jump to the front of the line. Of course, we'll be here live after the Saints game. Let us know if you're going down to the Big Easy. And again, if you have any good food recommendations, I'm always open to good food ones. What round was the Saints back? He looks like a boy wonder. Shuck, I believe, and again, I will check my math on this. I believe Shuck was picked in the second round. So I'm just checking that right now because I believe it went. I'm trying to remember. I can't remember if the Steelers drafted a quarterback before because I know Jackson Dart was the last first round. Jalen Milroe was the only third round quarterback to Seattle. He might have been third round. I'm just checking right now. Dart went 25 to the Giants. Yeah, Shuck went pick 40. So he went 2 picks before the Mason Taylor pick. And look, the hard part with Shuck, though, and again, one of the big knocks was a very older prospect and had some injury issues. I thought if he was in round 3, the Jets might take a flyer. But, Shuck went to New Orleans. I'm trying to remember I could have sworn the Steelers. I think Pittsburgh, maybe they took the quarterback. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. I could have sworn Pittsburgh took a quarterback. Maybe it was in round 3. I'm trying to remember. I don't remember the exact draft order for the quarterbacks. We know Ward went 1. Jackson Dart went second at pick 25. Shuck was the third quarterback, pick 40. And again, 25-year-old prospect. Again, you wonder how much of the ceiling it was. Milroe was the next quarterback. He was taken at 92. Gabriel went 94. Both were third-round picks. And at that point, I think Gabriel was more to shut up the Browns ownership, which ironically enough, the next quarterback taken was Shedeur at pick 144 in the 5th round. And then the rest of the draft, McCord went to the Eagles at 181. Will Howard, that's who it was. Howard went to the Steelers, and why did I think it was earlier? Howard went in round 6. Riley Leonard for Indy went at 189, and I love the fact that Phillip Rivers has kids older than him. Graham Metz went then next. Mellett, Cam Miller, who was a kid I thought the Jets would be interested in, went to the Raiders. He was the last quarterback selected in the 6th round. No 7th rounders in there as well. Yep, right on there. So, yeah, I don't know why. I kept thinking it was at the top of day 3 with Howard. I don't know why I thought that, but again. And look, Shucks looked really good. But the other thing, too, is he's got Kellen Moore. And look, Kellen Moore's a really good coach. He's always had great offenses, and he's a former quarterback. And I think that really helps with the development of these quarterbacks, and it really is showing. And look, this will be a great opportunity for him and the Saints. It'll be a great opportunity for this defense to show what they can do. So I'm trying to remember because I see this question coming in there. And again, I'll be honest, I'm not following the Browns. I do remember everyone going nuts after his 11 of 20 was at 166 first game. And I'm like, like 70 of those yards came on a screen pass to Judkins. I mean, a lot of the big plays have been to Judkins. So Shedeur is 1-3. Right now, Shedeur has Shedeur stats on the season at this point: 52% completion rate, 5 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. Has attempted 138 passes. And I'm trying to check a game log for him. Last game at Chicago, 3 picks, no touchdowns, 18 of 35. I have to check. I don't even know if he's starting this week. I don't think they're going back to Gabriel. I think they're just going to play Sanders down stretch. But, I mean, they beat the Raiders. That was the big one. Again, that was the 11-20 game, but he had the big screen pass for that. Sends 5. His best completion percentage, 149 yards, 1 touchdown, no picks. His best touchdown game came the following week against Tennessee, 364 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 pick, but only a 54% completion percentage, and last week 51%. Again, cold weather, I think, is playing a huge factor in Sanders. The Tennessee game was outdoors. Chicago's in the brutal weather. Tankathon, and again, I'm not going to stress for the finish, but I'm just trying to figure out who Cleveland has the rest of the season. Cleveland has, oh boy, at Buffalo, home against Buffalo, home against the Steelers, and at Cincy. The Cincy game's the weird one to me because I don't think they have a shot at being Bills or Steelers. But the way that Joe Burrow thing is going in Cincy, is there a chance Cincy at that point is so checked out that Cleveland sneaks a win and finishes 4 wins? Which, again, would definitely piss off a lot of Browns fans who are looking for quarterback. Right now, again, Jets would have the 5th pick in the draft. Of course, they play New Orleans, who's 4-10 this week. But the big one I keep an eye on is the Indy pick at 8-6. The ones I keep an eye on, Detroit 8-6. Carolina is 7-7. They get to 8 wins. They have right now a close winning percentage. Dallas 6-7, Minnesota, and then of course Kansas City 6-8. But Kansas City, they're toast. I mean, they are toast. And again, they're going to have some really interesting decisions off season. I'm of the belief that Travis Kelce's done. I think he's going to retire again. That's just my guess. Would you love a defensive coordinator for our New York Jets like either Jim Leonhard, Jim Schwartz, Wink Martindale, Al Harris, or someone else? On that list, my 2 favorites are Al Harris and Jim Leonhard. I think Jim Schwartz, again, would be my number 1, but again, he's coached for 25 years. I don't know if he's going to want to come here, and I feel like he's going to have a lot of offers if he gets released. Wink, I don't think would work personality-wise here. Al Harris is someone, again, defensive back coach, has really helped with the emphasis on creating turnovers, and they've done a really great job in Chicago. And I think Leonhard to me makes a lot of sense. Former Jet. I think Glenn would like to have that perspective in a former Jet player, but also Leonhard, very heady player. I always loved how smart of a player he was. And look, he's coming from the Sean Payton tree. And look, Sean Payton built a pretty damn good tree. I mean, Chris Banjo was a part of that. So there's worse trees to pick from than the Sean Payton tree. Rich, do you think we can get to the 3rd pick or higher? That's a great question, Tony. And here's the thing. The Jets might end up with the 3rd pick. Let's be honest. I look to this at the end of the season. My thing with the tankathon is, again, and I love these scenarios, but we're going to be playing these scenarios for months. I'm going to wait till the dust settles. I still think the Jets are going to have a top 4 pick at this point. The thing, too, is you got to see your dance partner. That, to me, is always what I've said with the NFL draft. The dance partners around you are the most critical ones. That's, to me, what is going to determine it. If our new Jets was out and we would finish 3-14, possibly picking top 5, maybe 3 or 4, we will see the other teams and records, etc., see how the rest of the games play out. And look, at this point, I think if I was a betting man, I think the Jets are finishing with 3 wins. I just think the Saints are on a bit of a roll. Again, maybe they're feeling themselves a little bit too much. Maybe this is kind of one of those trap games in there. Maybe the Jets come out early with a new fire, especially on the defensive side. Maybe they finally get that interception and get some confidence. Like, I almost feel like if they can get that interception or a turnover early, it's like almost vindication. Like, see, like we basically were showing, basically showing what we can do with the right people out there. Another thing to keep an eye on, too, with the Tennessee games for people with the tankathon. So the Chiefs, this is the Chiefs. I mean, you want to talk about, like, blatantly, like, just done. Like, The Chiefs for this week have ruled out the following: Rashee Rice, Trent McDuffie, Leo Chanel, Jalen Moore, Jawan Taylor, Tyquan Thornton, Jake Bristol, Najee Johnson, Derek Nandi for the game against the Titans. I think Tennessee's just done. I could see the Titans again winning that game. The big game that will decide the NFL draft is going to be, without question, the Giants versus the Raiders. That is going to be a huge one. Look, if the Titans win, that helps the Jets because the Jets would have the strength of schedule, so they would leapfrog the Titans, which would automatically, if they lose, gives them, without question, a top 3. Well, they got to look on Cleveland. But look, the Giants and Raiders, like we talk about teams. Paid all that money for Carroll. They paid all that money for Chip Kelly, and man, that's just been an abject failure. So they really have winnable games at this point. I mean, their defense is 32. Their offense is 32nd in the league for a reason. I mean, their last win came, ironically, at home against the Titans. That was back in October. So they started the season 2-4, and now are 2-12. They lost 10 in a row. So Raiders are weird because they play Houston, who they're not. I don't think they're going to be. Giants are the intriguing one in week 16. And then week 18, now all of a sudden this game looks a little different. The Chief game. So the Raiders play the Chiefs, which again, all of a sudden last week we were, wonder if Kansas City can make the playoffs. And now I'm curious about that game. And then for the Giants, their remaining 3, Minnesota this week, who is such a hot and cold team, but I think Minnesota wins at the Raiders. And then against the Cowboys. I mean, that Cowboy game is going to be fascinating. I could just see the Giants beating the Cowboys. I think the Cowboys at that point I think Cowboys are pretty much out. I mean, at that point too, like I could just see the Giants. I know Jerry would care, but the Giants somehow in the final game beat the Cowboys, and for like 10 seconds, Giant fans would be like, "Oh, it's great, we beat the Cowboys. Oh, we lost out on the number 1 pick." So look, there's a lot of moving pieces. There's a lot of moving parts again. Super chat, jump to the front of the line for your comments. Tony, do you believe the Jets will trade down? So when you mean trade down, I just want to make sure I got this properly. I'm assuming what you mean is when you mean trade down, you mean trade up for the first pick, not in some scenario where they got the first pick, they trade back from the first pick, just for clarification. And the answer I have is, I don't know. A lot of it's going to, if you think Mendoza is a franchise-altering quarterback, you do what you can. But if you don't think he's going to move the needle, then it doesn't, especially with the state of this roster, to me, it doesn't make sense. Like this is going to come down to Aaron Glenn, Darren Muji, because they have to have a couple of key moves this year with the quarterback position. They have to identify, do they think any of these guys are a franchise quarterback? They have to identify, what guy they're going to bridge to, because you can't just throw these kids out there. Mendoza might be the exception, but I still would like someone in front of him. And then the other thing you have to look at too is if you don't think they're going to be a franchise quarterback, you have to do enough to get a quarterback that you can at least compete with and really fill out this roster. I mean, I'm just looking like there's a scenario where let's say the Raiders get the first pick. Let's say Dante Moore goes back to college and it's basically Fernando Mendoza. And all of a sudden the Jets in this league, you're going to have to get creative with the quarterbacks. And was it McKee from the Eagles? Do you take a shot with him? Do you take a shot at Mac Jones? Like you're going to have to get creative. Like you're going to have to figure out how to go and navigate through some very difficult situations. So I just look at it and I go, if they're off the board, then you have to look at you have to take a hard look at the other positions. And look, the one thing with this draft is outside of quarterback, the one silver lining for this draft is if you were to ask me, What are the Jets' biggest needs in the draft? This is a draft that fits a lot of the needs for the Jets. I would say, like, what are the biggest, what are the biggest needs for this team? Edge rusher, really good edge. Linebacker, really good linebackers. Wide receivers, very good wide receivers. Even safety. I mean, the Jets are going to come away with a blue chip player. I mean, there's a scenario where night one they walk out with Arvell Reese or Caleb Downs or a Keldrick Falk and really improve the defense. I mean, there's a scenario where they add Jordan Tyson to go along with Garrett Wilson or Carnell Tate to go with him. And I mean, this is a draft too where, especially don't forget, the Jets have those 2 second-round picks. My feeling is they're going to try to move up late in the first round with the top one, and the second one try to move back and get a pick in round 3. But I'm looking at the top of the second round, which, again, the Jets will be picking. I mean, there's some really intriguing players that you can keep an eye on. I mean, Christian Miller from Georgia, big defensive tackle. I also look at maybe if you don't love Breece Hall, Jadarian Price, 5'11", 210 back from Notre Dame. I also look to like they want bigger edges. You got Quincy Rhodes in that late round 1, early day 2 range. Jay Golday from Cincinnati, the linebacker, bigger linebacker, 6'4", 230, more that thumper that they need. And then you have the safety position. One guy I would keep a name on is Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, the safety from Toledo, but he's 6'3", 209. Really big physical presence. And even like I look at Oregon, if you want more of a ball hog, Dylan Theinman, he was really good on Purdue. And look, I think he's been really good in man coverage. I think he's been really good as a run defender. The one thing I would say too, because again, I think one quarterback that is going to get a lot of pub, and I know especially with New York content creators, there's one that's very high on him. And I look at what he can do on the field, and I do like some of the things I see out there. But one guy right now, and again, I'm going to go more in depth when I look at his tape, is Diego Pavia. I would not go after him. And again, let's get to some more of your questions. Sorry, I missed some of your questions. I think my thoughts on Hooker are this. I think he knows the system they want to run. This, to me, is a battle for the backup/third quarterback next year. I think that they brought in Hooker. I think he'll be the backup this week. If Brady Cook looks overwhelmed, if Brady Cook has a fall or gets hurt, I really believe Hendon Hooker will be on this team in some capacity throughout the training camp or the offseason to push Brady Cook for that third position. There's a lot of different positions need to address. I think they're going to do a lot of free agency. They're definitely going to be very aggressive, especially on that. And Danger Zone coming to you live at 9 o'clock. Check out his channel, like and subscribe. And again, thanks, Danger Zone, for having us here. Love to have you as always. Again, smash the like button to get us out here. That could be an interesting possibility, Tony. And there's a couple of quarterbacks that I think, again, here's the thing when people ask, will the Jets take a quarterback? To me, the Jets will take a quarterback. The question is when. If they don't get one in round 1, I do think they're going to take a flyer early day 3 because a couple reasons. Number one, you have to have kind of that emergency plan if it doesn't work out. And more importantly, if you're on the fence about this coaching staff, but you see that they put a rookie quarterback in a scenario and in a place where they can succeed. And look, I'll be honest, Tanner Engstrom, with some of the things with Brady Cook, the hard part is the game plan, especially the defense has gone away. But for the most part, I think Brady Cook has looked functional as a quarterback. When we looked at certain guys with this team where the offense couldn't function. To me, Aller is someone with the physicality I would look at day 3. The thing is, you guys see the health, obviously, with the injury coming off of that. How is he progressing? One guy I keep bringing up, and again, maybe I'm a bit of a homer for this guy. I really like Joe Fagnano from UConn. And again, I've watched him play. I think that Fagnano is a really accurate player, older prospect, kind of like a Tyler Shuck. He's trying to remember the exact age he is. But I mean, I really like the kid. I think he's an incredibly accurate passer. Again, listed at 6'4", 225. Only had one pick this year, which was tied for the best in the nation. Again, only threw the pick. And again, it wasn't even a bad decision. It was a broken extra point where he was the holder and he was trying to get something out of it. So highly efficient quarterback. Again, 6'4", about 220. Again, has been very efficient quarterback for UConn. Again, he played multiple seasons with Maine. He played 3 seasons. Again, he's been 7 years in college, so he's close to 24, 25-year-old prospect. But look, played in a pro-style center under Jim Mora. You look at his progression, it got better every single season. Last year, the previous year with UConn, in 2024, only had a 58% completions, but 20 touchdowns to 4 picks. This year, 28 touchdowns to 1 pick, or the last 2 years, 48 touchdowns to 5 picks. Highly accurate passer. Again, I think a good enough athlete to move, and kind of reminds me like he could be the Tyler Shuck of this year's draft. I mean, I just really like him. And look, the Pavia thing too is I don't think the personality would work well in New York. I just think he would pick fights with reporters. And again, there's a fine line between having that cockiness and being confident in yourself. And the other thing too, which is again, with Pavia, I don't want to pick on him, but he's tiny. I mean, he lists himself as 6 feet, but you look in that room and in the pictures, he is not 6 feet. He is not. And the thing with Pavia too, where I look at the small quarterbacks, is a couple things. Number one, he's a little bit thicker build, but he's not built like a Russell Wilson to me. And the other thing too with the smaller quarterbacks is who have been the 2 smaller quarterbacks in the NFL the last couple of years? They've been Russell Wilson and they have been Tua. And both have regressed. And look, Tua to me is the more alarming because Tua's regression after all the hits and not being able to sustain the physicality does really concern me. And look, I know there's going to be a lot of Pavia fans out there. I think especially with this draft and what I believe will be a lack of quarterbacks in this draft, I do think he will be a name that gets mentioned a lot, and I think the buzz will really push him up. And again, do you mean Brendan Sorsby as a prospect? And again, are you talking about Diego Pavia? Yeah, Tommy DeVito, like he reminds me a lot of his game. And look, with Fagnano, like the thing too is with defensive coordinators, they don't want guys to turn the football. They protect the football, and he does a really good job at protecting the football. Again, older prospect. I know what people are going to say has to see the competition, but look, he's going to be in the East-West Shrine game. I think that will be big for him. And look, there's a dearth of quarterbacks right now. Let's be honest. And and that's the other thing too with Pavia is like Manziel, you kind of understood because Manziel was a freshman. Like he was a young kid. Like Pavia's an older player at this point. Like part of the thing too is I feel like a lot of people are going to fall in love with his game ability. But look, I look at the size. They list him as 6 feet. There is no way when you look at those Heisman pictures, there is no way he is 6 feet. He's listed at 207. I don't think he tops 200 pounds. So, and I get it. He's been great at Vanderbilt. It's been a great story at Vanderbilt. He had 27 touchdowns this year. I get it. He's been a fun player to watch. He's definitely a ball of energy. And look, if the Jets somehow took him on late day 3, would I hate it? No, but I get it. So I know he won the Johnny Unitas Award as well, but I just look at it too as, I just think Diego Pavia, especially with how he handled the Heisman. Like, I think that's going to rub people the wrong way. And the NFL told you what they think about players that are very about their brand or very much, very outspoken. I mean, look at Shedeur Sanders. Now, again, I think Pavia is going to be a lot better in the process because I don't think he's going to pull Sanders and not go to certain team meetings and blow people off. But I just don't know if he's going to really mesh like with guys in the NFL locker room. And look, I think he could be one of those players that could be a nice spark player in the NFL. I could see him being a guy like kind of a Gardner Minshew was, who if you need him to come in for a couple games, he can rally the troops, get people to believe in him and win a couple games. I just don't see him being a long-term functional quarterback in the National Football League. And again, maybe my thoughts will change as we go through the process. But it will definitely be. Yeah. Shout out to James Dirth again. Great former Jet. Dylan Gabriel, smaller. They're both small. I mean, I know where Kev says. I mean, the thing though is the Pavia picture though. It again, size shouldn't be everything, but it is very important. And to me, there's been more outliers with size in the NFL, like a Drew Brees, and there are success stories. But look, I just think the way he handled the Heisman will not help the draft stock. I just don't see that. And look, I get he's frustrated. He is an emotional player, and that is good. But the thing, though, is when you're a quarterback, you're viewed differently. You are viewed as the CEO of a franchise. And look, I get Pavia, the F all the haters, but it's, and again, he apologized, but the thing though is, and you can be frustrated, you can be upset, but this is the thing, like if Pavia has a bad game or someone picks him off and he does an F that cornerback post, that's not great. And you look too, and look, some of the scouts too, he's listed 6 foot, but he's probably below 5'10". Like Bryce Young was about 5'10" too. I mean, I think when we get to the combine, I will not be shocked if he measures at like a 5'9" or a 5'8". I will not be surprised. And that size, there's so many questions. So, man, look, I love the kid. I love watching the kid play football. That's not the issue. For me, the big issue with Pavia is, can he be the CEO of a team? Yeah, I guess we only know one thing about Danger Zone. Size matters to Danger Zone. So, again, Danger Zone, that's a good one. Again, like, super chat, jump to the front of the line. Again, comment to help us with the YouTube algorithm. We'll be back on Sunday with more live streaming after that game. And you can always, as always, check us out wherever our podcast is available. Again, we're on every platform for a podcast. So you want to take us on the go, listen to us at the gym, and check us out anywhere on social media using the handle at Rich Sports Talk. One thing I've been thinking about doing for the channel, and I do want to bring this up, is I do want to do a special video for the draft this year. And I don't know what you guys would produce. Again, if you're joining us after the live stream, let us know in the comments. I could do it as a live video and then incorporate the elements, or I can do it as a pre-produced video. Again, let me know what you prefer. But I wanted to do the top 25 draft busts for the New York Jets for the last 25 years. I was also going to do the best 25 draft picks, although that one will probably be a little harder to do, if I'm honest. But, some intriguing tank guidelines courtesy of Dylan Terraman on Twitter or X. For the Jets, Tankathon. New York loses to New Orleans. Tennessee beats Kansas City. Cleveland beats Buffalo, which is likely not going to happen. Las Vegas beats Houston. Probably not going to happen. Giants beat Minnesota. Probably not going to happen. And Arizona wins versus Atlanta. I have no idea where that one's going. I mean, I I don't trust the Falcons at this point. I think that's pretty clear. So, but we'll definitely see how that will all shake out. And again, I'm not overly going to concern myself with the draft picks. Again, I look at it as it's going to work its way out no matter what. And you just have to go with where the chips lie. Like that to me is how you have to do it. Or else you go nuts. Like, I mean, nothing drove as nuttier than the tankathon for Trevor Lawrence. Is the modern ceiling efficiency, surge on short throw, etc. talents, abilities, goers toward NFL trends in terms of. I really look, and that's the thing. Whenever we talk about a prospect and we say we have a but, people are like, oh, you hate the prospect. I really like Mendoza. I think Mendoza has the highest floor of any quarterback. But the problem I run into is this, and I think Mendoza can be a very good quarterback. And look, we've had a god-awful quarterback. So the thing I look to with him is in the big comp is Jared Goff. And I actually think Jared Goff is more athletic, but let's stick with Jared Goff. It almost feels like Jared Goff is a very good quarterback. He will make sure the Lions get to the postseason every single year. But is he good enough to get them to the Super Bowl? And I think that would be the problem with Mendoza, especially if Mendoza fell to you naturally, that's one thing. But if you're going to have to give up altering capital for a player who is a good player, and again, if he gets the Jets into the playoff hunt every season, that's what we want. But the problem is I look at the AFC, and the AFC is different. And look, we can take Mahomes out of this conversation for the time being because he's going to be out for at least half of next season. And I think the Chiefs are going to have some major retools. But just look at the AFC picture. You have Bo Nix and Sean Payton. They're not going anywhere. You have Herbert and you have Harbaugh. They're not going anywhere. You look at the South. I think Liam Cohen with Trevor Lawrence, I think that combination with the play caller, they're going to be in the playoff hunt every single year. And I look also like if CJ Stroud can get back on track, and it seems like Houston's getting back on track, that's another quarterback. I mean, the North is tough because we don't know with Rodgers long term. We don't know the Burrow situation. But you know one thing, you're going to face Lamar Jackson in the postseason. And in this division, you have Drake May and you have Josh Allen. I just mentioned about 7 or 8 quarterbacks. And last I checked, there's about 7 or 8 playoff spots. And could Mendoza be good enough to get to the postseason? Great. But is he going to be able to push you over the top? Because when you're taking a quarterback and investing that capital, you're really voting on special. And I really like him. I saw that danger zone. No, to me, the most important game of this decade has already been played. And again, you can debate this on your channel later, Danger Zone. That to me was the Rams game with Frank Gore, because that game, again, I look at that game for so many butterfly reasons. If they could draft Trevor Lawrence, I think you could move off of Sam Darnold. I think, again, I don't think they would have gone Urban Meyer, but I think you would have had a lot better coaching pool. I think you could have gone Mike McCarthy or something. That to me is the game of the decade, because I look back on that game and I'm like, that to me is the biggest butterfly what if, because then you got Zach Wilson, and that led to the butterfly effect of, well, did you keep Sam Darnold and draft Zach Wilson? And look, I was more of the proponent. I like Sam. And look, I will also say this on this channel. I don't think Sam would have gotten to where he is if he stayed with the Jets, because he went to 2 great offensive coaches. I don't think Joe Douglas would have put the roster around him because it took him way too long to build the offensive line. They didn't have the weapons, and you saw it with Zach Wilson. They didn't have the infrastructure. So I just look at that, and again, I see danger don't follow up. I'll get to your second one. Hopefully Mendoza he's not falling. Some teams going to try, especially if it's a 1 quarterback draft. He's going to look at that. It's just who and how does it go plays out. Look, there's going to be so many scenarios that we'll draft out there too. Look, he's not the chosen one, Tony, but he's sure a lot better than Justin Fields and freaking Zach Wilson. Like, give me Trevor Lawrence over those 2. I would have 5+ years expense. See if we did that differently. Hopefully, they save me another 5 years of this time. I'm hoping to. I think it's important, danger zone, but the hard part is this. I don't think it's the most important game because of the following reason. The Jets don't have the number one pick. If this was a game where we saw this a couple weeks ago, where this is legitimately for the number one pick, that to me could have been a more fair point. However, the Jets are not going to get likely the number one pick. They're likely going to have 3 to 4. The thing you want to happen is you want a team that does. You ideally want the Titans or you want the Giants to have the number one pick. Because I feel like the Titans of either of those teams, they're not moving off of Ward. I do think there's a world where the Giants could draft Fernando Mendoza. The hard part with the Giants is this, though. I do think if Joe Schoen stays in, we have no idea what's going on there, and I have a lot to talk about that. The hard part is this. Let's play the scenario the Giants end up with the number one pick. The Jets might have the best offer, but if you're the Giants and you give the Jets their franchise quarterback, and all of a sudden, at the end of the year, the Jets are in the postseason, and Jackson Dart isn't working out because he's getting hurt again, and you were the ones that gave the Jets the water in the desert for a franchise quarterback, or what looks like a franchise quarterback. That could be a decision that haunts them. And I do think that's something that's going to be in play, especially the Giants up with the number one pick. And I'll also say this: if the Raiders get the number one pick, you can basically say Fernando Mendoza. Unless Dante Moore comes out, but they're taking quarterback. The Jets need a team that doesn't need a quarterback, and they also need Dante Moore to come out. Because if Dante Moore says tomorrow, I'm going back to Oregon, all of us, I'm just saying it this way. Do not plan on Fernando Mendoza being a Jet. Because there's going to be so many teams. And yes, the Jets have the most to offer. But do I see the Jets? Because, here's an uncomfortable conversation because Cleveland also has multiple first-round picks. I mean, let's have it. I would say this. They might look and say, we might be better off just getting more better players and trying to get another bridge quarterback for a year. And the thing is, if I like Mendoza a lot, but there's going to be so many teams. Cleveland could move up. The Raiders could try to move up. And, here's an uncomfortable question. And this could certainly be a possibility. You like Fernando Mendoza. Are you comfortable with the Jets offering 4 first-round picks? And again, that's an overpay, but I could see a team like the Raiders, if they don't get the number one pick, I could see a team like the Browns saying, you know what? We'll give you all these picks. Because I guarantee you, especially the Giants, if the Giants hold the number one pick, you don't think they're going to hold the Jets to the fire? Absolutely. They are going to do that. Look, they're never going to tank. I don't think tank's worth it because teams don't tank in the NFL. Guys play hard. You can't tank because guys are going to try to win games. Guys are trying to put good film on tape. Can you refer Danger Zone? What are you doing? Dante Moore going back to school? I just want to get some clarification. Yeah, Tony, that's going to be a big conversation, and we're going to have a lot of this offseason, especially with where the picks end up. And look, if the Raiders end up with the first pick or the Browns, it's okay, we know one thing, a quarterback's going off the board. The question then becomes, is there going to be a second quarterback on the board? And if not, how do the Jets adjust? I know it's a lot, Danger Zone, but again, don't forget, the Browns have 2 first-rounders. Again, they're not as good as the Jets, but what if the Cleveland says, we're so desperate, we'll give you the 2 ones this year, we'll give you a 1 next year, and we'll even throw in a 1 the following year, or multiple 2s. I mean, it could get crazy. It could get crazy, and a team might say, you know what, Jets, you have 5 first-round picks. We're going to leave you at least with 1. I mean, again, I don't think that's the smart way to do it. I don't think Mendoza is this, quote, generational prospect at the top. But again, it will be very uncomfortable with how they handle it. And look, I think the Jets love Mendoza. You want the Browns to maybe stay with Shedeur. The one thing I would say is The only thing that I'm curious with the Raiders is, and again, I don't think Tua is going to have much of a market, but do one of these teams not love Mendoza and say we'd rather bet on Kyler Murray or Tua? I don't think the Jets will, but that's those are other dominoes to fall. And look, obviously the big one's going to be Joe Burrow again. Until I hear him say I need to get traded, I'm not going to believe it. But look, there's going to be a lot of dominoes to fall. We don't know what's going to happen in Pittsburgh at the end of the season with Rodgers and Tomlin. We don't know what's going to happen with Kyler Murray, where he goes or what market he's going to have. We don't know what kind of market Tua is going to have this offseason. There's always a veteran that will move or tend to move. So, again, there's a lot of different ways the Jets could go this offseason. And I do think we will definitely keep in contact with all that. But again, guys, thank you for another great show. Again, we talked about why Aaron Glenn will not be a one-and-done head coach. Maybe two-and-done, but not one-and-done. Talked a lot about the draft, talked a lot about New Orleans this weekend. Again, if you're going to the game, give me some great food suggestions. I'm always dying to visit the Big Easy and would love to have some great travel advice. Always appreciate that in the comments as well. And thank you, everyone, for joining us here today. Again, the Jets have a lot of work to do. And again, we'll be after this offseason. We'll be breaking down the quarterbacks at nauseum for 4 months. We'll be talking about mock drafts. Again, I do full mock drafts on this channel. You're not going to want to miss any of that. So make sure to hit that like and subscribe button so you don't miss any of our latest content. And make sure to join us after Sunday. Yes, I'm going to watch the Jets and Saints. Am I a crazy person? Depends on the day. But I will at least watch the Jets and Saints. I might get sick. I might have to at least have some good scrumptious food to get through it. But we'll break that all down again. We'll break down the final 2 games and, of course, the draft and offseason as we get closer. Thank you, everyone, for joining us here. Again, if you're a Jets content creator and you want to come on the show and collaborate, please reach out to me and message me. Would love to have as many great Jets content creators on the channel as possible. Again, hit that like and subscribe button. And if you're not doing anything tonight, go check out Danger Zone. He's got a great show coming every week at 9 o'clock. Make sure to give him a like and subscribe as well. He has some really great questions, as always, tonight. But again, until next time, I'm your host, Nolan Rich, and this has been Rich Sports Talk. We will see you.